Greetings and welcome back to the Car Doctor channel. I'm Tim. Thanks for dropping by the shop. It's awfully cool to have you here. And today we have a Dodge Ram 2500. This is a four-wheel drive Ram with the turbo diesel that's experiencing some issues in the front end. It actually came in because the brakes were making noise. And get a light here. Can see that the brakes are not doing well. The brakes are sick. It has a case of sick brakes, and the pads are grinding metal to metal. The calipers extended quite a bit on this side. There's abnormal wear on the brakes. So it's indicative of caliper failure and just brakes being worn out. So it's going to require calipers and rotors and pads, but that's not all. Wait, there's more. So I went ahead and shook down the front end, and it's got obvious ball joint wear. And one quick tip, if you're looking at ball joints on these, and this one's got 170,000 miles, and in Alaska that's quite a few miles for the original set of ball joints. But this guy is a regular customer of mine, and we've not done ball joints. We have done front hub and bearings. We've done the inner or the outer axle and U-joints on the front, but we have not done ball joints. Well, now the ball joints are due. And one thing to note on these, the upper ball joints are called a radial style joint, and there is up and down play that's normal in these when we're checking them. So pay attention to that. However, this one has gross wear that's evident in play in both the upper and lower joint, and it also has the, side to side wear, where if you take the tire and work it back and forth, it's actually flopping around like this and seriously up and down, and the ball joints are shot. But there's more. The tie rod ends, the drag link, the outer tie rod ends, the inner end, the inner drag link end, all the front steering linkage joints are bad. And they need to be replaced as well. And we're talking really bad, like getting ready to fall apart and your wheels just go whichever direction they want. So that's not good, and we're glad we identified this stuff, even though they came in for just some routine or non-routine brake work. We identified some real safety-related issues that go far beyond that, and we're going to get him squared away before a lot of summer driving and keep him safe, him and his family, and everyone else on the road. So anyway, if you're doing any type of front-end work on these, or even brake work, including the hydraulic, on the calipers and pads and rotors, or ball joints, or any type of suspension work, or steering linkage, this video is going to be helpful because we're doing all that in one job. So let's get going on this. First thing we're going to do is pop this tire off and get going on it. Now I'm going to remove the flexible brake hose from the caliper, but first I'm going to just clean the dirt from around the brake hose where it mounts to the caliper. Just makes things easier when you're putting it back together. Use a 15 millimeter. Now remove the caliper bracket bolts. And remove the caliper assembly with the bracket intact. My replacement calipers have the bracket, come with the bracket, so I'm just taking it off as an entire assembly. Now we can pull the rotor off. Now let's pull the ABS wheel speed wiring harness off. Just pull these little keepers off of where it runs along the hose. Now we'll disconnect the sensor wiring harness. All right, now we're going to remove this axle nut here. Washer behind it. Now we go back behind the knuckle and remove the 4 retaining bolts for the hub assembly so we can pull the whole hub assembly off. Yeah, here's something to note. These hub assemblies don't usually just come right off. I have replaced this one recently, like a year and a half ago, so it might pop off okay, but generally they require a special tool to remove it, and I'll show you that tool here when we get to that part. But in the meantime, these are 4 18mm bolts on the back side retaining this. Now, I'm going to go ahead and take this tie rod off here since we're going to be pulling these anyway. Might as well get that out of the way, make it easier to turn back and forth. That's a 21mm deep. I'm just going to smack it right here. Get that tie rod out of there. A lot easier to turn. I'll get my other 2 bolts here, retaining the hub. Here's the special OTC puller for getting this off there. Just bolts to the face of the hub, like so. With the, we can just use the wheel bolts, and then you thread in this screw to press against the axle shaft and pop the hub off. We'll just lightly tighten these wheel nuts down. There we go. Now we're just going to pop the axle through the end of the knuckle here. Just by prying outward on it. So anyway, like I said, I did these a year ago and the joints look real good. You could consider doing these if they haven't been done recently. It's probably a good idea. And some people ask about draining the front diff before I pull this axle, and I don't typically run into problems. If, in worst case scenario, if a little bit of gear fluid ran out of the housing here, just kind of clean it up after we get it put back together and double check your fluid level. But this particular one, if you have it on a level surface, it's not going to run fluid out of the end of the axle. So now we just need to remove the upper and lower ball joint retaining nuts and then pop this knuckle off so that we can press the ball joints out. Now I'm just going to pound on the front face of the knuckle right at the ball joint stud on the upper and lower and drop this thing off. One tip is to go ahead and thread on the lower ball joint nut just a little ways so that this whole thing doesn't land on your big toe. It always hits your big toe, not your little toe. Yeah, it always hurts too when that happens. There's other things that can hit too that would be worse, and trust me on that one. Trust me. All right. Sometimes you just got to really beat on it. All right. So now the lower ball joint has a little snap ring that retains it. The upper ball joint does not. The lower one will press out that way and the upper one will press out that way. So I'm using the OTC ball joint press, and I have the little Astro add-on kit which gives me the necessary adapters to press these out and press them back in, and works good on most four-wheel drive cars and trucks to enhance the application coverage of the original ball joint press. And also you can get the off-brand ball joint press as well, and this should work with that kit as well. It's the Astro 7868 kit. And like I said, it covers pretty much most four-wheel drive vehicles with the additional adapters you're going to need. I'm going to remove the upper one first. Now I'm going to remove the outside snap ring on the lower ball joint. Let's see. This one. So I get my ball joints ready to install, and just let you know what kind I'm putting in there. I've gone with a Moog part, and I'm just sold on their quality. I have not had comeback type issues once I put these in. I won't see this back here for ball joints, so I'm usually going with Moog parts whenever available. Here's your all the linkage parts, drag link, outer ends, inner ends, and calipers and new rotors and quality brake pads. So go ahead and grab a couple ball joints and we'll go press these babies in. Okay, there's a grease zerk that you want to orient towards the back of the vehicle on the lower ball joint. We'll install that first using this adapter on the base, and then this little adapter on the top side. install my retainer snap ring. Install the greaser. And we're gonna install the seal and orient the little notch towards the inside so that any grease expelled is expelled inside and doesn't wind up on the brake rotor. The seal is the most important part of the ball joint. That's why using quality parts, you'll get a quality silicone rubber that won't crack or fatigue. But if you damage a seal during installation of a ball joint, well, you're going to want to replace it simply because it's just not going to last long. It's not going to keep the contaminants out. It's not going to keep water and dirt out. It's not going to keep the grease in. There's going to be premature failure of that joint. So it's a little tricky getting these stupid seals on, but you just got to work at it. You'll get it. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and reinstall the steering knuckle assembly and properly torque the upper and lower ball joint studs. Most quality ball joints are going to come with a spec sheet, and you want to refer to the spec sheet for torquing, just in case they call for a different torque other than what the OE recommendation was. So let's see, in this case, lower ball joint torque to 35 foot-pounds. That's the initial torque. And then you go back and torque the upper ball joint to 70 foot-pounds, and then retorque the lower to 140 to 160. Take it to the lower end of the torque, and then tighten it to where you can put the cotter pin through the slot. So we'll start at 140 on the bottom, and then we'll tighten it till we can get the cotter pin through. 70 foot-pounds upper. Perfect. Put my cotter pin through. There we go. All right, we'll put our drive shaft back in. Good to put a little bit of lube around the sealing surface, make sure that's clean, and reinstall it. Now reinstall our hub. Apply a little blue Loctite to the end of these hub bolt threads, and then we'll go ahead and torque those properly. Uh-oh. Oh boy. Oh. Oh, shoot. What the frick? Okay, now I'm gonna, let's see, I'm gonna go ahead and run. Actually, let's install the rotor. Okay, and let's go ahead and prepare the disc brake caliper for installation. Okay, I'm gonna move the caliper from the caliper mounting bracket. And I'm going to install my hardware. Install the hardware. And I'll go ahead and bolt this onto the knuckle. I'm going to put a little blue Loctite on those threads. And torque them. Okay, now I'll install my brake pads. In this case, the wear indicator goes on the bottom of the inside pad. The one without the wear indicator goes on the outside. And the caliper ready. Go ahead and put some blue Loctite on the caliper mounting bolts. And okay, I'm going to use the supplied replacement sealing washers for the brake hose. And then I'm also going to just take some brake clean and clean up my the little banjo bolt. And something else to think of is make sure your surfaces are cleaned here. I've taken a wire brush on the hose and made sure that's all clear of debris. Just a small amount of dirt or whatever can get under there and cause a leak and subsequent loss of brake pressure. So you don't want that, of course. And go ahead and be careful to get the threads properly started on the bolt. They're very fine threads, and you want to make sure they're lined up properly before you start tightening that down. be sure to torque the axle nut to the proper torque, and you can do that by inserting a screwdriver into the slots of the disc rotor, and then that'll lock the hub in place, and then you can go ahead and torque that. Then be sure to replace your cotter pin in there. Now we want to reroute the ABS wiring along the hose and reconnect the connector. All right, so we about got this side wrapped up. I'm gonna go over to the other side and do the same thing over there, upper and lower ball joints, and then I'll disconnect the left side of the steering linkage and drop it off of the pitman arm as well. And I'll show you that, and we'll take the whole steering linkage over in its entirety to the bench and change out the parts while we're over there. That way we can keep track of the number of threads, each component on there, and try to get it back relatively close, even though we're going to do a front end alignment. And as with any of these repairs, you should be doing a front end alignment afterwards. And then before we button the wheels back on, we're also going to bleed the brake system. Okay, I've got the other side done, and now we're going to move along to the steering linkage. And to pop the rest of this off, I've got both tie rod ends off. But I'm going to need to remove the steering dampener or the steering stabilizer shock, and then we'll remove the inner drag link off of the pitman arm up here. But I'm going to remove the nut off the end of the stabilizer, where off the steering shock, where it goes through the basically the center link area, and then you could tap on that. Careful not to damage the stud. Okay. Now we'll remove the end off of the steering pitman arm that comes off the steering box here. And I will use the pickle fork on this one. Okay, I got the linkage laying up here on the bench, and here's something that might help you. If you think of it, just take a picture of the entire assembly laying on the bench, and that'll help you remember what direction the joints go facing. Again, I'll show you taking it apart here, but we'll count the threads on these as we loosen these adjusting sleeves. We'll count the threads of the ends and get them put back relatively close to what they were when we took them off. And then we'll do a front end alignment. And another thing I forgot to mention is be sure to grease all your grease zerks. After I get these linkages put back on, I'm gonna hit the upper and lower ball joints and all the grease zerks on. Okay, let's go ahead and change out the tie rods. And it works really good if you use a vise for this. It's helpful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start one joint at a time so I can keep track. And like I said, if you take a picture of the whole thing, it might help you when you're putting it back together to orient the studs in the right direction. All right, let's pull off this outer end vise. And I'm going to count the turns. Okay, make sure you spray some WD on there. Count your turns for moving. And you could also just reinstall it and count the threads here. Although sometimes the aftermarket parts has a little bit different threads cut in it, so that may not be completely accurate. So best way is to count the turns as you're removing it. There we go. Spray a little more WD in there. Thread in our new one. About right. Now I'm going to unthread this adjusting sleeve. Count the threads here too. $36. Right. Now we'll do the end on the pitman. $32. Okay. Yep. And there we go. Okay, let's bolt them together. Torque this one, I'm going to torque it to 55 foot-pounds. And then align the cotter pin slot. Perfect. Okay, let's install all of our grease zerks. So you can throw away these metal washers. They're made to go with the original boot. With these new joints, you don't need this metal washer, so just discard that. Let's go put it on the truck. All right, we're going to wrap this one up with the front end alignment. I'm not going to show that part, but I am going to remind you that the joints along these linkages do need to be adjusted properly before you set the adjusting sleeve. So when you're doing the front end alignment and you're setting the toe in, you want to make sure that these are in the proper geometry, that the joints are aligned where they're going to track properly and do that before you tighten down the adjusting sleeves, so you do get a proper toe-in setting and a straight steering wheel after you're done. That said, I want to also remind you that this video is for entertainment purposes. Please consult your repair manual for proper repair techniques and specifications. The car doctor is not responsible for loss of life or limb as a result of improperly done repairs. So keep that in mind, and I do appreciate you watching the video. Thanks for the likes and subscriptions. If you have positive feedback you'd like to leave below, put that in the comments section. Something I forgot you think is important, go ahead and add that. I appreciate the feedback, and I do appreciate you. Have a great day. All right, take care.